All right, and we are live. Welcome back to the Dev Twitch stream. My name is Nick Taylor. I am a lead software engineer at Forum. Forum is the software that powers dev. Today, super stoked to be hanging with Demetrius Clark. Hey, Demetrius, how you doing, man?
I am doing fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
Cool, cool, cool. Before we get started, you want to just maybe say a little bit about yourself and feel free to shamelessly plug anything while my shaving incident continues to bleed. Sorry, stream.
Yeah, I got you. I got you. Hey y'all, my name's Demetrius Clark. I'm a career transitioner, bootcamp graduate. I've been doing UI and DX engineering for the past 5 years since moving from retail. I currently work as the Jamstack community engineer, which we're going to describe what the heck that means today, but I do that over at
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Netlify. Yeah, if you were to ask me like what am I doing in tech, it's to be everybody's unofficial favorite hype man. I'm all about getting people, to their goals and I love getting people into tech and seeing that they can code and it's a big passion of mine. So I've actually been a dev.2 member for literally 5 years. I think I just looked at or 4 years, my
Cool, cool.
badge just came up.
Nice.
And I absolutely love like the idea behind getting, your blog up and running and it's just really cool to be here. So thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, yeah, no, no. Love having you on here, man. So yeah, so you mentioned it. So, your role at Netlify. So what is, in your words, what is a community engineer?
Yeah, so I think like realistically, like if I were to tout what my title is, I'm really just a DX engineer with a community focus.
Okay.
If anybody knows what a DX engineer does, and if not, I can give a little bit of background on that. Basically, building open source tooling, helping out in communities, getting integrated between really like usually the product and the customer, and finding the way to
Yeah,
be kind of the person that speaks between them. I think that's like a really good way to describe a DX engineer and somebody who can, you know, submit to open source repos in the ecosystem, things like that. Mine is more community focused. So currently,
okay.
I created and maintain the Jamstack Discord. We also have the Jamstack.org repo, which is fully open source. So that's another thing that's kind of under my belt to maintain, add
Okay.
features to, things like that. And then, yeah, like hosting events and just building in public really is a lot of my job. So
Cool, cool.
I'd say it's like community engineers are, I think, a growing role. It's starting to become like, I feel like developer advocacy is finally starting to see legitimate niches that exist within these roles. Like some
Okay.
people are really content heavy, some people are really community focused, some people are very IC, right? Like individual contributors, they
Yeah, yeah.
like to code and add and things like that. So I think you're starting to see these new roles become really apparent in the community, and I think that's like really exciting.
Cool, cool, cool. Yeah, so I dropped a link to the Jamstack Discord, which is where the community is now, right?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, we moved from Slack. We had a Slack, I think, running for a few years, ran by Phil
Okay.
Hawksworth. And when they hired me, I'm just like such a Discord head that I was like, how do I come here and get y'all over to Discord? Like that was my goal.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
we made that happen a couple of months ago. So it's been really fun to see it grow.
Cool, cool. And yeah, so I'm curious. So what kind of, I mean, like every Discord's different, so you have all kinds of channels in there, I imagine. Like is like how is it? I'm in there, I'm not in there super often, but I go in there when I can. But
Sure.
like how did maintaining a Discord server and just like building it out and stuff, there's that on its own is challenging, but I know that there's a lot of tools in there that they make available to you. So I'm just curious how
Definitely.
you built it out or how you approach that.
Yeah. So it took me a while. A lot of building inside of Discord is like, kind of hitting the walls and realizing what I needed and what I didn't. Like so I used to run React Adelphi. I say used to, it's still a live
Okay.
community, but I have done such a horrible time at bringing it back since the pandemic. And that was the first
Okay.
place I had a community in Discord, probably about 3 years ago. And back then it was really just like a platform for gamers. It's kind of like how Twitch streaming started for a lot of people, right? Like was kind of like a
Yeah.
platform for gamers and tech people used it because they gamed as well, but it wasn't like widely adopted. And I think like right around probably a year ago is when they started really being a community focused platform. And that
Yeah.
was when like a lot of moderation features came down the tunnel, and now we've got like community pages, welcome screens, like really, really good onboarding techniques that I think are missing in a
Yeah.
lot of these other platforms, especially something like Slack. That to me, like unpopular opinion to some, that is a work only platform. Like you should not be using Slack for your communities. It doesn't have the features that are built for longevity of a community. Things like having to pay
Yeah.
per head to have message history. Like one of the things about Discord that's really cool is that it can almost be like a living forum in that you can literally get the Discord search is so powerful. So you can go into a
Yeah.
server and literally like, a lot of the dev tooling nowadays have their own servers, right? You can literally go
Hmm.
into a dev tooling server, search your problem, and almost Stack Overflow your answer right inside of a Discord, which I think is like really
Yeah.
spectacular. But to
Yeah.
answer your original question, like what are the ways in which I've set up Discords and how they become kind of a community? For me,
Yeah.
it's like one of the big things that I think people don't understand is like you're gonna have a core set of channels when you begin, right? Like always start in the middle. Don't have too many, don't have too little. When you have too little, it's really hard to hear people. When you have too many, the conversation is too spread. Try and find somewhere in the middle that works. What really is the truth behind it is a community should be living. So if I have
Yeah.
right now, the Jamstack Discord has a set of channels that I just was like, hey, we had 7K members over in the Slack. So I had this
Hmm.
really interesting problem of I want to set up enough rooms that match that movement from people who are already in the Slack and enjoy a lot of the channels there. But I also want
Yeah.
to kind of show them the way towards better communication inside of a community. So I set up a bunch of channels, and it's great. We have high activity in some, no activity in others. The thing is that every community should be living. Like it should be a living,
Hmm.
breathing thing. So when I like we're in the process of setting up monthly community town halls, and one of the
Oh, okay,
topics that
cool.
I want to broach is like what should the channels be? Like I don't ever think that no community manager should ever be the end all be all of how your community runs. Every community
Hmm.
manager needs to also be a part of the community, a working member of the community. So to do that, bringing the community in on a lot of your decisions and a lot of like the structural decisions really helps in making the place somewhere that people want to return to. So I think like
Yeah.
having your channels in the right space for a lot of your community is like a really great place to start. And then like moving on from that, making sure that people are like welcomed and know that they belong in your server, in your community. Like a lot of
Yeah.
servers that I see out there, one of my biggest gripes is that it's the same thing across a lot of servers. It's the same people who are loud and who want their opinions heard that drown out a lot of people who may want to come up and speak, and especially when it comes to like diversity, right? Like I
Yeah.
don't think as an ecosystem as a whole in developer communities that we do a great job at all elevating past what we look like and what we are expecting. And we see that in conferences, we see that in meetup talks, right? Like that is
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
the ecosystem that exists. So for me, having the right channels for people to speak in is so important because that gives room for people to speak who usually wouldn't. And also opening up and making sure that it's a safe space for these people to come and have conversations and get interested in the dialogue. Like those are the two core things that you need to make a community kind of move. And then Discord with its moderation features, its ability to set up bots, build your own bots. Like there's so much
Yeah.
like deep customization that you can get if you really want it. And I think that's like spectacular stuff.
Yeah. And I like what you said about, you know, creating a safe space and welcoming I can't remember if it was Chris Piscardi's in the chat there, but I think he tweeted it out. I could be wrong, but just how like you want to make a safe space, but you have to always show up and keep doing. I'm paraphrasing, but you have to always do it. It's not like a one time and like
Right.
here's the readme or here's the code of conduct. You
Right.
really have to live up to that,
Yeah.
and making a space safe too can mean so many things, but like you said, just people being able to share their opinions and stuff. And this is something like you like I work on community software, and it's like something that it's a tough, not a tough problem, but you have to be vigilant about it, you know what I mean? You
Yeah.
can't be like, and I don't know if it's like this in the Jamstack Discord yet, but like we have members of the community who end up becoming moderators as well, just because, like for
Yep.
example, like Dev 2, which is the biggest forum we have, it's like I think we're gonna probably hit like 1 million members this year.
Right.
I think I feel like it. We're at like almost 800,000 right now. That's like a
That's
lot of
crazy.
people,
Oh yeah.
and that doesn't scale if it's just the team, like our team doing it, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
yes, you can, like by asking people in the community or people volunteering saying like, hey, can I like moderate this tag, or can I become a moderator just to, you know and it's nice to see. And one, it helps things scale, but it's also nice to see that people really care about the community, that they actually want to,
Right.
they want to give back. They want the content to be good. They don't want, you know somebody coming in and all of a sudden trash talking another member, and then like people let it slide, and like,
Right.
so there's
Yeah, no, that
and it's a
being
tough
left
call.
alone is like that being left alone is like one of the big reasons people will not engage. Like if they see that that's the type of like, we just had something very similar happen when we were making the move from Slack, that we just like officially closed the Slack last week, and we had
Yeah,
somebody who had said something that was uncomfortable. Like it was just an uncomfortable thing to say, and it carried
yeah,
over into the Discord. And it was one of those things where it was like, we have to moderate. This is another thing. Moderating in public is such a big deal. Like, this is shout out to
yeah,
Chris Biscardi. That man right there
yeah,
really has taught me a lot when it comes to keeping people safe. Like, he has made me a much more vigilant individual inside of communities. Just watching how we've moderated the Party Corgi Discord. Shout out to the Party Corgi Discord. It's easily one of my most frequented Discords. Um,
yeah,
that
yeah,
was like such a big eye opener for me, right? Like, before, I would have always kind of DM'd the person and tried to, find my way through moderating somebody and figuring that out. Uh, since, learning and watching what happens inside of Party Corgi, and now I think in some other servers, like, there's so much value to moderating in public because other people see what they're protected from, and that's like super important. So I think back to like what you're talking about with having community moderators
yeah,
so that there's a little bit better coverage. I think, two things when I hear that is like, I definitely agree. Like, community members love being a part of the bigger, pie. And I think that's like,
yeah,
it goes back to what I was talking about when it's like, for me, I want to, when I made, so I've never done professional community building. I've done my own community building my own meetup, building my own,
yeah,
communities. And, it's so different when you're being paid to do it, when you work for a company. And then mine's
yeah,
even a little bit more weird because I work for Netlify, but I manage the Jamstack ecosystem and community. So like, I'm split from the product. I don't
yeah,
necessarily have to advertise the product. I don't necessarily have to do anything that's like product specific. Um, so for me, it was like, I want to join this role and give as much ownership of this community back to the community as I can. And I
yeah,
think that starts with empowering community members to be able to start making decisions with you.
yeah. No, for sure. And yeah, I like what you said about the moderating. It's like you have to do it in public because, and the thing is, I mean, I'm somebody who doesn't really, I'm not, I don't really like super awkward situation. I don't think anybody really likes super awkward situations, but when it's something like this, it's super important because it sends a message that we don't tolerate this, like you really have to live up to your whatever your code of conduct is, or your values of your community, because otherwise all of a sudden it's like nothing means anything if you don't stick up for those things, and
Right.
sometimes it's tough conversations in public, like you said, but you know that's the way it goes. But I think
For
even
sure.
if it's even if it's tough convos, I think the community appreciates it, and I've seen this happen on Dev 2 mainly, just because I'm on there a lot. But
Sure, of
you'll
course.
because I was a moderator before I was even working there. But
Mhm.
you'll see conversations, because sometimes there's gray areas too. There's a lot of nuance in moderating things sometimes,
Oh
like
man, just people in general, like, people
yeah,
people handling of any sort. There's always a level of nuance for sure.
Yeah. No, like we were we were talking about this the other day, but like I can give a perfect example. Like differences in cultures can definitely be taken the wrong way, you know,
Right.
like I always like telling this story because well, it's poking fun at myself, but um like my cousin's wife is Danish. She's like very direct, and they came over to my parents' house for Christmas one year, and I opened up the door, and I hadn't been working out as much at that point, and I opened the door and she's like, "Hey, Merry Christmas. You look like you put on a lot of weight," you know? And I know her, so I know that's how she is, but some it's a silly, it's a funny example, but it's a way to show that like just a difference in culture or just the way
Yeah.
people are can, like, somebody could be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you said that," because like
Right.
I feel like somebody in North America would be like, "Nick, man, you're looking great. Yeah, Merry Christmas," which is, that's another thing. But so and sometimes there's even language barriers. Uh,
Right.
I I'm speaking for Dev too here, but like we get people who where English isn't their first language, so maybe
Right.
sometimes when something is written a certain way, it's not because they meant to be offensive. Maybe it's just the way it came out because they're doing their best to write and stuff. So it's
Right.
people are complex, and like I've been in the moderator channel and we'll be like, well, what do you think about this? Like people like discuss it. Like, do you think we should ban this person, or like let's suspend them temporarily? Like it's not just a like black and white kind of decision,
Right.
which would be a lot easier, but it's never most of the time it's not the case. And unless it's something flat out like, okay, they wrote something racist, yeah, that's a
Sure.
no-go, like.
Right.
But
Yeah, I
yeah.
think that one of the things that I think a lot of people are, especially like people from NA, are starting to deal more globally. Me especially, like that was definitely one of the. So when I worked for Cloudinary, that's an Israeli company, but mostly it's,
Okay.
our home office was based in Israel. Learned a lot about like just Israeli. Like I've always been around like people in my grew up in New Jersey, so it's kind of a melting pot there. But like they always,
Yeah.
the joke is always that America doesn't have a culture. That the culture is the amalgamation of a bunch of different cultures inside of America. And I think that
Yeah.
one of the things that like has really I've learned a lot from is being so much more globally aware and in more global communities. And that's definitely something that
Yeah.
we hit snags on. Is for me, it's always kind of time zone moderation, like or even
Oh
just
yeah,
time
that too.
zones
Yeah.
in general. Like how do we we can't be active all the time. That's another thing that's weird about being a professionally paid community manager over somebody who does it on their own time. When it's on my own
Yeah.
time, like I'm a maniac and I'm answering you at any which time that I possibly can because I'm just around and I'm up all the time. But like when I do it for work, I try to have
Yeah.
boundaries. Like I'm not going to talk after this time, or like, unless I'm really needed for something, I usually will wait until the next day just so that people kind of
Yeah.
understand that I have a schedule as much as they do. But the whole like idea of having somebody around at those times to not even just for moderation purposes, for like conversation, to keep conversation
Yeah.
lively and people being answered. Like, yeah, I think there's a lot of nuance around that the more global communities that I think we're a part of now.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's a good point about the time zones. Like, I mean, I'm aware of that work-wise because like been we were a remote company even before the pandemic, and
Right.
I have coworkers like in Russia, Thailand, South Africa. So like, some of the time zones overlap in some cases,
Sure.
but a lot of times that's where the async comes in. But yeah,
Right.
I guess that's even a little more different in a community because like work-wise, like we know that we're globally distributed and no one's expected to answer, but that's why we do a lot of writing instead. But yeah, in a community, I guess the same thing could apply in a community. You throw out a question or
Good
whatever.
documentation. Like I think good
Yeah.
documentation and write up, like that's another thing that I think is just so important and why I love Discord is that they've made onboarding and you can get creative in ways to really make sure that people have something to fall back on when there may not be
Yeah.
someone to fall back on. Like, I for instance, I have like a Discord tips channel inside of the Jamstack community, and it's just a
Yeah.
Notion page that I've pinned at the top of a read only channel that
Okay.
has individual pages based on like how do I do threads? What the heck is a voice channel? How do I share my screen? Like
Yeah, yeah.
what do I do in case of an emergency? And then like another thing that I want to work on is a bot that auto messages you when you join the server with just like ways to get involved in the server,
Okay.
ways to maneuver the channels. Like I think that it may be annoying to get one of those like auto messages, but I think
Yeah.
there was a really great conversation in my Discord in our community gardening channel, which I highly advise for any community out there having a channel that is specifically related to people being able to give you suggestions for the community to discuss new ideas that you have instead of you just unilaterally making the decision. But we had
Yeah.
a discussion in there that was, we recently had a Twitter space about how do we make it feel safer for, marginalized folks to be able to join a lot of like mostly white male servers
Yeah.
that we've seen across a lot of the discords and communities that are being made. And one of the suggestions was to do this auto DMing thing where we have a much
Yeah.
more detailed onboarding for folks who want to get involved but don't know where to start talking, don't know
Yeah.
what the conversation, because that's a lot of the nuance in asynchronous conversation in communities is that you don't want to ever interject yourself when you don't know everybody. Like, and that's
Yeah.
the same in anything. Like, you don't want to do it in a room full of people. You don't want to do it in a room online where you don't have to see anybody. It's weird. So I think finding ways to kind of break that barrier is like so important right now.
Yeah, for sure. And in terms of just making the community welcome for each other, to everybody. I remember her name's Steph Davis. She's in my virtual coffee community, but she's in developer DAO as well, which is another community. But she was saying like, uh, I'm probably paraphrasing slightly, but you don't say something like, "Hey, as a black woman in our Discord, do you feel safe?" That's not how you would. She said you don't do stuff like that. You say like, you just have to keep it simple. Do you feel safe? You don't have to go into specifics. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And but yeah,
I
it's
think I
still a
think
big
I
deal.
my only like tidbit there is that I don't think it's right to specifically start asking questions like that, but I think asking yourself questions like that is important. Do black women feel
Yeah,
safe in my community? Do black men feel safe in my community? Do you know folks from all like I think it is right to ask the individual questions to yourself to make sure that you're like because that's why you need to have a diverse moderation team. You need to have opinions in the room that shit like we
yeah,
will never understand it. We can read enough articles, we can hear what people are saying online, but we have never experienced what that type of alienation feels like. People feel
yeah,
it at work, people feel it all over, right? Like in all social scenarios of their lives. So I feel like it is really important. Not that you're not saying that that wasn't important, but I wanted to tag
yeah,
on
yeah.
and say like it is so important to hear those voices. It is so important to think about what those voices may feel joining your server because that is like right now, like, for instance, I just started up like an auto stream shout out, right, in one of the going
Okay, yeah,
live
yeah.
channels. And I asked everybody for some links. I was like, hey, anybody that's doing like Jamstack or web related content on their streams, throw me your link. And I have 25 spots until we upgrade. And I
Yeah.
like started doing it and I had like 9 people. I was like, oh, cool. And then I looked at it and I was like, this is a list of like 6 out of 8 white men. And I was like, okay, like this has to be brought up. So I went in and I said, hey, like I am seeing too much of this. Is there any way
Yeah,
that
yeah.
is there anybody that was, that maybe didn't get to speak up or tell me, DM me, let me know. Like I want to diversify the speakers and the Twitch streams that we
Hmm.
have. And it's just like that's what I mean when it's like you do have to be diligent and very on point in making those decisions and going back and checking yourself and double checking yourself and making sure that you really
Yeah.
are opening it up to everybody.
Yeah, for sure. And it's definitely like, you know, I'm a white dude in tech, so it's like there's a lot of privilege with that. So yeah, you do have to step back and you know what I mean? Because stuff like I do, it's like there's things I don't even think about because like I just
Right.
don't, you know. Um,
That's
also,
exact like it's like recognizing your own ignorance is like the first step and then being able to like actively engage your ignorance is like I think, big step for a lot of folks in tech that
Yeah.
need to be taken.
Yeah. Chris Biscardi is saying in the chat, opt-in lists are really tough because the people that opt in without being invited are always the same people. So,
Right.
yeah,
The
no,
loudest
it's a
in the
good point.
room, especially. Definitely.
Yeah, and it's yeah, and that's the thing. I'm 100% sure you're an extroverted person. I'm pretty extroverted. I have no like I can definitely just walk in somewhere and say like, hey, what's up? What's going on here?
Right.
But like you always have to give and I know it's in meetings and stuff too. You know what I mean? You have to have that like awkward pause where there's that silence just to see is anybody else going to talk? Because like in my brain, it's like, oh, it's silence, silence. Somebody needs to
Oh,
talk.
dude,
So
my ADHD pushes me to like take over a room, and I really do actively have to be like, okay, shut up, let someone else talk. Like, seriously.
yeah,
And
yeah,
I think it goes back to the privileges. It's like I've never walked into a room and felt like I couldn't talk. I've never walked into a room and
yeah,
felt like I was being alienated to talk. Like, those are such weird nuances that, again, that privilege, really gives us. And I think it's just
yeah.
being proactive about those things is all like, is I think the bare minimum to ask.
Yeah, for sure. And what I like to do, because I tend to joke around a lot, I'll just say it out loud. I'm gonna leave like 1 minute of awkward silence if anybody else wants to talk, like, and it usually makes people giggle, and then like somebody else will speak up, so
Sure.
because I'm also being very explicit, like, please somebody else if you want to say
Please, somebody
something,
else, fill this room with something that's not my voice.
Y- yeah, so it's but it is tough,
Definitely.
like you said, so because sometimes it's like because awkward silence is awkward silence. You know what I mean? So,
Exactly.
but
Exactly.
anyways, yeah, yeah. So cool, cool. So yeah, so we've been kind of touching on like something else we were going to talk about, which is like community best practices. So I guess we can kind of keep leaning into that if you want to.
Yeah.
Um, I think the one thing I noticed about Discord, like I'm definitely no Discord whiz yet, but because the dev stream, I created a Discord server for it. So originally it was just literally me, Christina, who used to be my co-host, and then like whatever guest. So I didn't have anything set up in terms of like code of conduct or anything because it was literally
Right.
just like to come on to the stream and leave. But we're using it for Dev 2 at least now there's a bunch of moderation channels in there now because we had a chat feature built into
Yeah.
forum, but
So I'm a mod. So I've seen like the
oh,
chat.
okay, okay, yeah, yeah. So we phased that out of the application. We'll
Yeah.
probably revisit that at some point. Uh,
Right.
I'm just spitballing here, but I think it makes sense to more integrate with other stuff for chat.
Right.
Um,
Well,
and
I
then I
think
lost my train of
that's
thought. Oh
like a
yeah,
really well, that's like a really interesting piece of communities that I think is always kind of a debate and a battle is that like, do we do a forum or
yeah,
do we have asynchronous community? And I think that like both make sense. Like I think that, you know,
yeah,
previously I've always heard like the SEO of having a forum is why we need it. And it's like, okay, yeah, that's great. Like I
yeah,
understand that there's always like behind when you do professional communities, there's always some type of business metric we have to tie to. I get that. But at the same time, it's like,
yeah,
how do we make this? And again, this is just like the DXer. I feel like talking in me. It's like, how do we make this like? How do
yeah,
we
yeah,
make both platforms like accessible to people? How do we make them like so that people want to visit them? Like
yeah,
nobody's waking up and being like, I have to hit this thing. How do we make it so that it's like, oh, I've
yeah,
hit this snag. I can go to one of these two resource. Like, how do I make this community a resource? It doesn't just have to be
yeah,
people fooling around and talking. Like, how has this place become something that someone can come and get
yeah,
information from, learn something new, find someone new to have a, start up a freaking business with and start, building with. Like, how do we make those
yeah,
things
yeah.
doable? And I think that having, like, I don't know if you saw recently Discord announced that they're trying out a new feature of having like thread as forums where you have like a page dedicated to
Oh, okay,
threads that looks like a forum. And I think that that's the routes that you're going to see a lot of these platforms going is
okay.
being encompassing of the multiple types of content and ways that people like to communicate.
Yeah, no, that's a interesting feature because I know in some other Discords I've been in, it's like if like I shared something useful because like I don't know, we were building out something and
Right.
I ran into a snag, so I figured out a solution. So I created a thread And then I think right now, I don't know what the max time you can put on a thread is. I don't think it can be permanent, but I think I set it to like 24 hours because we were doing, like, everybody was building the same project, but just, everybody probably would have ran into this. So I pinned it as a thread temporarily and then it vaporized after. But yeah, I could definitely see that new feature being super useful because it almost like, well, like you said, it's already pretty searchable, but surfacing it so it's like right in your face could be super helpful.
And being
Um,
able to separate communication from education, like I feel like
yeah,
a lot of the threads that I see created in developer discords are really around, you know, mobbing on a problem, right? Like, getting a mobbing session
yeah,
on
yeah,
an issue that somebody's having. So more of like a proactive support kind of thing. And also
yeah,
just like I think we're seeing a lot of folks who have overutilized threads in Slack coming to Discord and wanting to
yeah,
overutilize threads again in Discord. And like that was already a problem. Like I you don't know how many people I've argued with over the years about this whole like especially before Discord had threads, like people were like,
yeah,
"Yeah,
yeah,
like I'm not moving to a platform without threads." And I'm like,
uh,
threads are just as siloing as any other thing. Like threads allow you to
yeah,
pull conversation away from the general public. Like if you've got the right channels in place and good communication practices in place, threads are unnecessary. I
yeah,
can see like very specific use cases for threads. Like again, like support. Like I feel like supporting in threads, like we just added an auto threader in the Jamstack Discord to the ask for help channel so that every time somebody
okay,
asks for help, it auto creates a thread and we can get to like some really nice, like, one-on-one support. But other than
yeah,
that, like it's really more like case by case when you'd want to use a thread. And I think we're definitely overutilizing threads in today's like community culture. Um, but I think to that
yeah,
point, the forums are going to allow us to say, okay, here are dedicated threads to things like maybe somebody asks, where do I get started in this Discord? Like, okay, cool. Like, let's make a forum thread that
yeah,
stays at the top, that pins or something that people can go back
because
and
it's
see that
relevant.
other people are asking the same question and stuff, right? Exactly.
Yeah, yeah. And it's funny that you say that about the threads because like it's a constant debate in
Oh,
Slack. Wait, can we start a thread or like you're I'm completely inconsistent with this. Sometimes I just go with the flow and everybody's just, you know, I think the thing is when you don't have a thread in some cases, it's like somebody goes to read that channel, like in Slack, for example,
it
and
has
it's
to,
like, yeah,
yeah,
it's like it's just like
broken
impossible to
through other
absorb what's
people's
going on.
conversations. Yep, yep, yep.
Yeah. But I find it so inconsistent and I'm terrible at it too. Sometimes I'm like, yeah, there should be a thread, and other days I'm just like, YOLO, forget it. But
I like
it's
that Discord does like named threads so that it allows you to like break out, and I love that there's like an active threads like
yeah.
section inside of Discord. So you can be like, oh, okay, like let me get past the clutter and see exactly. So that's what I mean. Is like I believe that there are very specific use cases where I think a thread makes
Hmm.
sense. But I think being more intentional in threading and
Yeah.
making sure that we're not just threading every single like I've seen threads created for 3 messages between like 2 people. And
Oh,
I'm like,
okay, okay.
this was so unnecessary, but I get it. I think it just comes from a space where a lot of people are so used to work inside of our async communication
Yeah, yeah.
platforms coming from Slack that we have created these practices that aren't community practices, that are work practices that we are trying to
Yeah.
force on community. And I think that that is where I win a lot of people over when we get into that conversation of Slack v Discord, is that it's
Yeah, yeah.
like yes, you're going to have to retrain yourself on some features. Like that is a definite. That's why I think onboarding in every channel is an absolute necessity. You have to have onboarding for like what I have a channel directory so that if you're ever wondering what the heck these channels even do or why they're here, you can go and read the
Yeah.
channel directory. I have, a way to do Discord tips. Like there needs to be ways to prevent the blockage that people feel coming onto your platform. But I think like learning how to communicate more effectively is a more important thing that I think people need to learn about in today's like fully online culture that we're dealing with.
Yeah, for sure. And I was trying to resize the Discord window while you were talking, and it just went like boop 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 boop. So sorry, folks who are watching the stream. I've got these. I don't know if you ever used Raycast. It's like a Alfred replacement, but it's
Yeah,
got
I
window
use that
shortcuts.
now. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and my brain melted. I was keeping it the same size, but I wanted to center it because I'm kind of looking to the left while I'm talking to you. But I banged it up, so
I'm doing
I'm
the
just gonna leave
same.
it.
I'm doing the same, so I feel you.
Yeah, but I remember what I was gonna say before about. I think you might have touched on it at the beginning, but so like when I first started this Discord that we're in right now, like I said, it was just for the dev stream, and now that we've got moderators and stuff in there, that's when I had to start. We had to put all these things in place. Like we need a code of
Right.
conduct, we need all this, and one thing I found super useful was it's a small onboarding, but like Discord allows you to just say like, generate a code of conduct, like just it was really easy to set up, and I changed it.
Yeah.
I'm not positive, maybe you can answer this, but I'm not sure what changing it to community mode does. I did switch
So
it to community mode.
yeah, so community mode I think gives you some more onboarding. So I think you get the welcome
Ah,
screen,
okay. Okay, that's how I
which
got
is
that.
I
Okay, yeah,
believe
yeah.
which I believe is specific to like the communities. And then I think the rules, like there's like the welcome screen and there's also a rules screen where they have to accept the rules to
Yeah,
enter the
that was it.
server.
Yeah, yeah.
I think that's another
Yeah.
piece of like slotting your server as a community gets you. And then I think it's also going to be
Yeah.
soon this forum feature is probably going to go to communities. They'll
Okay.
probably wait, and what the only thing that I that kills me with Discord is that it takes so long for features to come down the tunnel because as they should, they test them in high traffic channels to see how
Yeah.
they hold up. But I really am excited for the way that I've already been like they should be sponsoring me the way I've been talking about them for the past few years. Like seriously, um, I am like such a fan of the way that they're handling a lot of the things that they've done wrong over the years that coming from a gaming platform. Like I'm a gamer, I'm a huge gamer. I've gamed my whole life, love esports. One of the most toxic communities in the world is gaming. Like it's really
Okay.
hard to like you see Twitch streams, like if you ever watch a Twitch stream, like the chats are insane. They say terrible things. Like it's not
Yeah.
a particularly safe place unless specifically made to be. And I think that's where Discord I think
Yeah.
started was like in this like let's get all the gamers together and have them having conversations. And that's what a lot of people think like isn't that a gaming platform? And it's like yeah, it was, but like it's really
Yeah.
just an asynchronous communication platform that's built a lot of really nice features for communities on top of it. And I think they're doing a really good job with that.
Yeah, no, they definitely are. It's one thing I wanted to touch on too is, and this isn't specific to like the Discord you're running. It's like this is something I've noticed because I'm in a lot of communities, and
You
I've
telling me, I
suffered
feel you.
from community fatigue. And
Sure.
it's not just Discord. Like I'm on like other communities too that aren't Discord, like Dev2, the Code Newbies, and all that stuff. And it's like
Yeah, right.
I I don't have an answer to it, but like you know what I mean. I think part of it is somewhat pandemic related because like people have just been online a lot more. But it's just like when I log into Discord, I don't know how many Discords I'm in. I'm in like I
Right.
think maybe like 30, but like I have like only 3 that aren't muted. All the other, and it's not because I don't want to see the other content. It's just it's too much for me to process.
It's overwhelming.
It's like if somebody dropped like a 2,000 post-it notes on your desk, you'd be like,
And they
well,
said sort these in alphabetical. You're like,
yeah,
okay.
yeah, yeah, exactly. That also sounds like
Um,
a horrible interview question.
I was about to say, I feel like I've been through that with some of the companies I've interviewed with. But yeah, I think that I've been talking about this a lot actually, so I'm really happy you brought this up. It is 100% due to our every single company, OSS, like all of them are on
Yeah,
Discord for good reason. Like it makes sense why they
yeah,
are.
yeah.
I think that one of the things that Discord doesn't do well is teach you how to like they have a really great I don't know if you've ever been to like the Discord Academy. But
I have not.
Discord has a whole area of learnings. Like so if you check out my I'll actually post the link to my give me one second. I'm gonna post a link to my Discord tips Notion page.
Okay,
Um,
cool.
they link off to like especially the moderation piece. They link off to like a moderation
Yeah.
academy that teaches you how to moderate inside of Discord and stuff like that. A lot of that stuff is pretty useful, like in
Okay.
the whole of that Discord academy. But for the quick and dirty of it, the thing that they don't teach you up front is how to
Yeah.
manage scaled community integration. So
Yeah.
I also probably have about 50. I've recently deleted like 30. So I had like 80. I was coming up on 100. I felt like
Yeah.
super
Yeah.
overwhelmed. Few things. One, you're always going to feel community fatigue when you work in this space. I think that's just like a given,
Yeah. Yeah.
especially as a community member. Like you want to be a part of all of these places. You want to see what everybody's talking about. You want to be a part of the conversation. That's just a given. You're also going to be one thing I try to explain. I've done like community consulting. I'll set up Discord channels for
Okay.
companies on a consulting contract. And one thing I try to get across very early is that you're going to get, even if you got 30,000 members, you're going to see 10%, maybe a little more, 15 to 20% of active
Okay.
users. People are lurkers. That's fine. Like people already have been taught to lurk because Twitter, because like we are
Yeah. Yeah.
scrollers. We like to see. We don't always like to engage. That's just how it is, and it's even more so in this way because of the pandemic. Like we are hyper.
Yeah.
Everyone's hosting a Twitch stream. Everyone's on Zoom. Everyone's doing these things. Like so, like you're always kind
Yeah.
of in
Yeah.
this space where you have this FOMO, so you join to just be there, right? And I
Yeah.
think that
Yeah.
that's perfectly fine. Like I want people to know, and like this is like a shout out to you're a lurker, and that's normal. Like the really cool thing is when, and I see this in Party Corgi a lot, and I love it. It'll be randomly out of the blue, somebody will come in and be like, "Hey, I've been in this server for 6 months now. I'm just working up, the courage to come and say hi to y'all. I've learned so much from you over watching your conversations." Da, da, da. That is like such a win. That is such a push in the right direction. Like that.
Yeah.
Like that is what we need to strive for, is to make lurkers feel okay with being lurkers and knowing that like we are still maintaining a really strong community of people who are still learning from us even if they aren't actively engaging us. So I just want to get that out of the way. Two,
Yeah. Yeah.
biggest, I just shouted this out on Twitter and everybody was like, wow, I didn't even know this existed. If you check up in the right corner of your Discord, there's an inbox. They
Okay.
need to make this UI more prevalent. It should probably be able to become a split pane, the same way that threads are able to become a split pane inside of your UI. That inbox right there is every unread channel of every server that you have. So
Oh, no way.
it's a really cluttered space. But
Okay.
if you go in and individually mute channels instead of muting servers, you then get a
Okay. Okay.
curated list of every single unread message across all of your servers for the channels that you care about. So
Okay. Okay.
that is like the idea of muting channels doesn't mean you don't necessarily care about the channel, but it means that you want to decide when you are involved and engage in that channel. You don't
Okay.
have
Okay.
to actively be looking at it every day. But I would want,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in Party Corgi, for instance, they have a workout channel, a mobility and power channel, and I muted it, but I'm still in there. I still search it and see what people are saying, like on my time. I
Yeah.
don't
Yeah.
have to be, we get all overwhelmed by this like white dot on the side of our notifications because we're just in notification hell anymore. But
Yeah.
curating, like leave servers that you're not going to be a part of, right? Like that's just a fact. Leave servers that you're not going to be a part of, and go in, individually mute channels, and you will find
Yeah.
yourself using the inbox much more often to catch up across all of these servers that you're in, and it makes it a lot easier.
That's a really good pro tip. I did not even know it existed. Uh,
Yeah.
Side note, I was
And most people
also
don't.
I was
Yeah, you're
laughing a bit
laughing
while
at
you were
Will,
talking
right?
too. Yeah, yeah, he's
Yeah, my
family
boy
got some good
Will.
hair. It cracks me up. 'Cause I mean, you're growing your hair long right now, but like me, after a while, I start looking like the Lion King. So I get my hair cut. But whenever I got my hair cut last week, so it's like it takes 2 weeks before I think it looks okay again. And then so like right now I'm kind of like in
In
army
the in
crew cut mode,
between.
I guess. Yeah, but it's also it's also pandemic, and I'm like, I just go get my haircut, and I'm like, you know what? Even if it's a bad haircut, I don't care. I need needed a haircut.
Dude, my hair, I could literally so like all right, so I've got like this short on the sides. I literally went I think I went with a 1 clip. I think so it was
Okay,
like
yeah.
pretty close to a skin fade. My hair grows so insanely fast on my face and my head that I could get a haircut 1 week and the next week you could totally not like my girlfriend all the time is like, didn't you just get a haircut? I'm like, I know. So like now I
Yeah,
wait
yeah,
because it's like it doesn't even matter anymore. I get like 1 week of a fresh cut and then it's over. So I just whatever, you know what I mean? I'm just a hairy and it's just here. Like I only grow all my hair right here. I'm thankful because I'm not going bald. I can't complain there.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it grows like in seconds. I'm just wasting money at the barber at this point.
Yeah, I don't know what it is with it too. In the winter, for some reason, my hair, my nails, everything grows faster. Anyways, these are all the important things that people came to hear about today.
We knew we would
But
do
it's
this. We knew we would
yeah,
get
yeah,
off
yeah, yeah.
violently off course. Yes,
Exactly.
sir.
Yeah. Previously on grooming tips. Yeah. But yeah, yeah, cool, cool. But yeah, that's awesome. I really got to check out that inbox feature because like I've never even noticed the icon.
That it
Like,
exists.
uh,
Right.
yeah, I'm not gonna check it now because we're streaming, and then I'm just gonna get completely distracted. But yeah, no, that's super cool. And this is one thing I've been thinking about, and like maybe that is what this inbox feature is because it's like you just kind of want like this super virtual server, like
Right.
let me like
How do
I
I
feel
pick
like you
and
could use
choose
it.
where I'm at? Right. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, like I feel like because there's clearly an API to show the servers in Discord. I feel like you could have that same API, like the same interface, and it's like
A
it's a
mega server
virtual server.
almost.
You just say Nick's server or Nick's picks or whatever, and then I can just drag like particular channels and like that's
Yeah.
really what I would find useful, because
Yeah.
then but maybe it's just the inbox with a better UI, like you said.
So
So
so that is where I'm at with the inbox. What I'd like to do, I
yeah,
was just thinking about this recently, was I would love to I've been playing around with the Discord API a bunch because I've been messing with bots. I want to make a personal Jamstack Discord bot. The if the UI was able to be full pane, I'd be so much
yeah,
more interested in it because like if I could create a server that was my inbox, like and
yeah,
visit that to visit like that would be awesome. I think you'd probably get into a snag of like
yeah,
how would you that's probably why they don't do it because it would probably be hard to keep continuously
yeah,
updating. But like it already exists in the inbox though, so it's like but yeah,
yeah,
you can like I love like I definitely I'm telling you anybody on this definitely check your inbox and like it shows you every channel, all of your mentions in one side, all of your unreads in another side. It gives you a full
okay,
mark inbox is unread. So if you come on and you're like I don't care about any of this crap, mark inbox is unread, like it marks every channel's unread messages to read.
okay,
So like the it's like doing the steps to move away from being overwhelmed, I think is like a thing that a lot of people
yeah, yeah,
haven't done because they're so overwhelmed with all of the things happening asynchronously. Yeah, take
oh
some
yeah,
time to do that because it will help.
yeah. I'm definitely gonna check that out. And
Did
side note,
Demetrius
but
just enter the chat?
yeah, yeah. It's either your stunt double or your Mike's stunt double. I don't know who's who,
People
but
probably don't understand why this is such a troll meme around like this space. I literally am at Render ATL. I walk up and they're like giving me the speaker badge. And I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not speaking. And they're like, well, we have you slotted at blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, nobody told me that I was speaking today. And they're like, yeah, like I look at the tag and it's like
yeah,
Mike Harding. I'm like, I'm not Mike Hardington. What are you talking about? I give it back to them. I'm walking around the conference and somebody comes up like, can't wait for your talk later. Like, I can't wait to hear about Ionic. And I'm like, yo, like that's not me. Like I promise you that. And then we're standing next to each other, and I don't know how many times I've heard people be like, yo, like you guys are like brothers, like da-da-da. It was like I was like, I am him. I'm just him. That's just where we are at
yeah,
this
yeah.
point.
It would have been funny if you took the speaker badge and said, "Yeah, I'm ready. Let's do this,"
I
and
should
then
have just
just
gone up
like
on stage with him,
just wing it.
honestly. We should
Oh
have
man.
like I should have learned his talk so that we could have like ping ponged off of each other. That would have been funny.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. Awesome, awesome.
Couldn't be
Cool, cool.
couldn't be compared to a better guy. Mike Hardington, what a swell person. What a large heart.
Awesome, awesome. Sorry, that's making me giggle, and Will's laughing in the chat too. Well, so is Mike.
Welcome to Tangents
Um,
with Demetrius.
yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, cool, cool. Yeah. Another thing. I mean, I'm loving all this convo about community, and there's like just tons of great knowledge nuggets about Discord here that I'm gonna check out. But we were kind of talking about building in public the other day too, and I know I've never met you, but like I think I came across you. I think it might have been either your Jamstack talk when you were at Cloud and Area, or it might have been another talk before. I can't remember. There
I
was
think
another one. There's
it was one of the jam.dev talks, I think, is when we first
oh yeah, yeah, yeah,
I think I did a work like a live coding session for uploading with serverless cloud area or something like that. I think
yeah, yeah. That was it.
was
Yeah, yeah,
possible when we
yeah.
first talked.
Yeah. So, I mean, obviously, like you were talking about, like you got the DX tendencies still, and you were clearly building in public before that. I'll tie this into giving a drop to your Twitch there if people want to check that out. I don't know.
Thank you.
Um, but yeah. So, like, I guess how did you start getting into building in public?
Yeah. So whoo, this brings me back to like when I first kind of moved out of my boot camp.
Okay.
Okay, so I went to a really shitty boot camp. Sorry for the language. Went to a really crappy boot camp, and in
Okay.
that boot camp, we now closed. If that gives you any, answer to what I mean by that, it wasn't good. Um, we came out the other end, and maybe three or four of us actually finished
Okay.
the course out of like 22.
Okay.
So
Okay.
at that point, I was like, okay, and this was like 5 years ago when boot camps weren't trusted yet. Like boot camp grads weren't trusted as hires yet. Like I still had to like
Okay. Okay.
heavily prove that I was worth an engineering hire back then. So for me, that meant two things. That meant getting a community together. So when I left my boot camp, I created a community called Boot Camped, and we were basically so. If anybody who knows about boot camps here, you know that boot camps all have alumni channels or alumni servers that people can go back to network in or ask questions or basically form a community of people who have already graduated.
Yeah.
My thoughts were like, why isn't there a super alumni channel of all of the different boot camps where we can share our experiences with each other and check the boot camps for what they are and aren't giving us, right? So I created a
Okay.
community. Eventually, that actually led to a startup that I was building for about a year after. And so, like, I wasn't looking for a job yet, but I was building community in public and talking heavily on like LinkedIn and Twitter about
Okay.
the community and what we were doing. Then I started to realize, like, okay, the more I talked about building the community and like what we were up to, the more engagement I got from folks who I possibly could get jobs from. And
Okay.
so then I was like, okay, like and this was before like I think the term like learning in public or building in public was really a thing. So
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
just like, look, like I got to talk about stuff. Like I already like talking. Like let me just tell people what I'm up to and see what conversation that brings me. And at first I was a little nervous. I was like, okay, like I'm also a noob, so like, am I gonna sound like an idiot talking in public about these topics that I don't know
Yeah. Yeah.
100% about? And then I started to realize like one of the most important lessons I learned is you have no idea how many folks are in your position or a position similar that are learning from you as you're going through these steps. And that could be for
Yeah.
tutorials, that could be for what you're doing in your job search. Like any of these things could be a point of interest for hundreds of other folks to get involved with and share their
Yeah.
stories.
Yeah.
And so, like, that kind of triggered to me. I was like, okay, like, maybe I can teach people code. Like maybe I can lean on teaching people code to better strengthen my core of understanding, right? Like I am a huge
Yeah.
advocate, and this is where Egghead really interested me and why I joined them as an instructor so long ago, is that it's like
Okay.
getting in and teaching the thing makes it better for you and for everybody. Doesn't matter if it's been taught a million times. Like that is like a big thing that they do, is that like it doesn't matter if there's 70 React courses on our platform. People learn differently. People learn from people differently. And having that type of diversification of your content is so important. So once I got done that, I started doing more Philly community things. So
Okay.
I grew up in South Jersey, And for people that don't know, if you live in South Jersey, you're basically a Philadelphian. If you live in North Jersey, you're basically a New Yorker. If you live in Central Jersey, which
Okay.
is a thing apparently to some people, you live in Central Jersey. I don't know which really that makes for you. But um,
Okay.
I live in Philly now, but I was like, I'm gonna
Yeah.
establish my career in Philly. I want my career to be being in tech in Philly, finding the job in Philly. I just really liked the city, and I really liked, like, I wanted to get a part of it. So after
Yeah.
I basically I quit my doing the startup. I wasn't learning to dev as much as I was doing, like I was doing a lot of biz dev and like I always knew that that's where I would settle. I did retail for 8 years. Like, obviously, a lot of people can
Okay.
tell that I love to talk. Uh, I was not coding as much, and I felt even more imposter syndrome. So I quit. I started doing React learning full time because I looked in job searches and I saw that React was like really huge in Philly. So I was like, okay, cool. I can get a
Okay.
React job. That's what I'll focus on. So I spent a few months just taking courses, whatever. And then I got my first job. It was a job called Red Queen. They're not around anymore. One of the best jobs I've ever had. The bosses are like family to me still. I was their first engineering hire. We worked out of my boss's house.
Nice.
Like, that's how small startup was. Uh, I there was empowered to start my first meetup, which was RQ React. We did
Okay.
monthly workshops where I would put together every month a new lesson for people. So we were exploring GraphQL years ago. We were exploring Apollo a
Okay.
bunch, teaching React basics, teaching like fundamentals of React. I started taking those workshops and being like, oh, okay, I can just release these to everyone. Like, this doesn't have to just be for the community. I can just put this out there.
Yeah.
Then I moved towards having my first workshop at one of the Philly dev conferences, and that was
Okay.
when things really started blowing up. Egghead had reached out to me and was like, "Hey, we'd love to have you come and teach." And that's when I started to realize, okay, like I need to start actively talking and streaming and getting myself out there because that is the way that this seems to work. Like, it seems to work.
Yeah.
Like, if you don't have the background, as long as you have the proof that you know what you're talking, like, it is a proven fact that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
It is a resource that is referenceable to say, oh, okay, yeah,
Yeah.
I love building in Node.js, and everyone's like, okay, that's great, and I'm like, no, look, like here's 5 things that I built with
Yeah.
Node, and I wrote about them with notes. Like, then the idea of like when I joined Party Corgi and started hanging around Chris Biscardi a lot, like the idea of like
Yeah.
digital gardening and learning in public, and like Joel and Chris would talk about this all the time, and I was like, I hate writing. Like, I'm just not, I'm much better at public speaking than I am at writing. So I like leaned more towards like videos and Twitch streams. But very recently,
Yeah.
actually, I haven't like talked about it openly yet because I'm still working on the website, but I've been writing to Notion and using Notion as my DB. And on my
Okay.
personal website, I'm just putting everything that I like, notes that I take, courses that I want to make. Like, I do them in stride now because I think what a lot of the time
Okay.
happens is people get caught up in a backlog of like, I want to make a course, but I have to do all of these things to do it, or I want to write something, but I have to have like a full page before I post it. Like, what I've learned is like just get it out there as you're doing it, because those points of
Mhm.
interaction when you're first starting a project, like your mind and your
Yeah.
headspace is in a very specific place, and other people are going to hit those same roadblocks. So yeah, I don't know. It was just
Oh
like
yeah.
it was doing so much for me as a community builder. It was like just one of those things where I learned more the more that I taught people, and that was like a big thing to push me towards learning in public.
Yeah, I can 100% agree with that. Like, I do a lot of pairing at work on stuff, and that
Right,
definitely helps because it helps me solidify what I know as well too.
right,
And it's kind of why I started streaming in I think like March 2020. I actually got inspiration. One, it was the pandemic. This is like lockdown in Montreal, like many places. And I'd been watching, I mean, I've been watching a bunch of Jason Langsdorff's streams. He has like an amazing stream, as most people know. So I kind of took inspiration from him. But when I first started, because I work in open source, I was just like, you know what? Pandemic, I'm bored. I'm just gonna start streaming. I had like a crappy layout. I just had my webcam and like VS Code open,
heck yeah,
and because there's nothing to hide for my work, I literally just I started off just doing like an hour a day on the stream, just like talking to my little guy here, um you know
oh, there it
um
is.
Yeah, yeah.
Slight
But I
plug.
had
I
another
seen that.
yeah, I've had other rubber ducks in the past, but
Nothing beats the corgi
and
duck.
I was, yeah, yeah, but yeah, that's kind of how things started for me in terms of like learning in public. I had also been, I'm a fan of a lot of the stuff that like Twix does, Sean Wang, and so like I like the learning in public idea is not something new. It's just
Right.
I feel like a lot of stuff he did popularized it again, or like the actual like learn in public, like the naming and stuff too, but just kind of combo with that stuff, and that's how I started streaming, and then as when you start off streaming, it's like there's like nobody watching. Like
For
I think
sure.
like the first couple or like probably like first 2 weeks, I think I had like zero people talking, zero
Yeah.
people watching, but it was just me talking to myself, and I didn't care. I was just like, what, I'm gonna do this, and eventually got more people. I mean, still not a huge amount of people, but I
Sure.
just I really like streaming because it's more raw. Like I definitely have huge respect for
Right.
people that do YouTube video content
Right.
because that 2 minute video was not 2 minutes to make. Like that was probably hours and hours
So
of
much
work for a
effort.
2 minute
Oh
video.
yeah.
But and I don't know. I feel like that's something I would find interesting to do at some point, but I just personally right now I don't have that much time to dedicate to that. And that's I think why I kind of lean towards Twitch because people expect that it's not going to be perfect. It's like kind of
Right.
built into the platform. It's like I
Right.
remember even earlier streams, it's like, oh, my audio is not working. Oh, my camera, my camera, all of a sudden it's all fuzzy, just
Yep.
silly stuff like that. But it's just fun interacting with people and learning and teaching too. And so
Yeah, and it's like
it's yeah,
another thing is
I've
is
been
that
loving
like
it. But
you get that like historical content still from doing streams. And I think one of the things that I think really gravitated me towards streaming was you get the reality of what a
yeah,
day as a software engineer looks like. Like for me, I watch all of these videos and I'd watch these people I looked up to on Twitter and I'd be like, these
yeah,
people are freaking perfect at doing this stuff. Like, I'm not doing none of
yeah,
that. Like, I'm over here sweating, struggling, trying to get this freaking document together, and these people are writing it. And then I started making content and I started seeing how much
yeah,
practice goes into that, how much memorization goes into that. And
yeah,
and I have a high respect for folks who do that like consistently. Um the other end of it where Twitch is concerned or live streaming on any platform is you get to see my
yeah,
mistakes. You get to see me make like even in my egghead videos when
yeah.
I was making them like a few years ago. I've been so terrible at putting out video content. Is I would leave in some of the mistakes that I would make because that is
Okay.
the reality of coding. Like the reality of coding is not perfect
Yeah,
written code. It's the idea that you're going back and refining and you're going back and building in practices that you learn over time. Like it's all a learning over time.
yeah,
It's
yeah,
it's it's all a work in motion. Nothing is ever going to come out like. And if it does, and you're that person that it comes out perfect every time,
yeah.
good power to you. Like I guess you've won the game. But I would get so many people who would be like, especially when like we were live show. We actually used to live stream our meetup
Okay.
live. This was back when I was running Reactadelphia, and people just loved like being able to tune in and see people just like going through the motions. And I
Yeah,
think that
yeah,
like you'll see if you look around the internet at any of the talks that I give usually or when I'm at a conference, like usually I'm doing live coding and I'm screwing up and I'm doing it live because
yeah,
like I it's not that I don't want to practice and be perfect. It's that I love when the chat gets involved. Like I love when the chat
yeah,
is
yeah,
like, "Yo, like da 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 da, like fix it here," and I'm like, "Oh my man, thank you so much." Like it works in that way, but it's also one of those things where like I feel like a lot of new devs are coming in waves, right? Like we're getting so
yeah,
many
yeah,
more folks. Like shout out to 100 Devs. I shouted
oh,
them
yeah,
out on my
yeah,
last Twitter space. 100 Devs ran by Leon Noel. He's a director at Resilient Coders, which again, shout out Resilient Coders, one of the best boot camps out right now. Um, they are self-teaching and learning through this boot camp with Leon and are posting
Yeah.
about it and seeing all of the like they're getting into the networking. Like Leon does a very specific piece of talking about networking to them. Like it's a part of the
Okay.
curriculum is to understand that networking doesn't always mean sliding into someone's DMs. It's also about building community around you and getting the community involved.
Yeah, for
The
sure.
with that happening in droves, like I want them to see that the reality is that what they're going through, a lot of us have also went through, and I'm 5 years into doing development. I've been doing UIs for like 4 or 5 years now. Like I know what I'm doing in React. That doesn't mean I know everything
Yeah.
in vanilla JavaScript. That doesn't mean I know everything about React. There's still, I'm sure, nuances in React that I haven't hit because I haven't built them. But you're not going to hit those nuances until you're working on something that nuance comes from. So I
Yeah,
think
for
that
sure.
like the learning in public is so important because it shows other people the reality of what they're getting into, I think.
Yeah, I 100% agree. And like what you're saying too, I love it when the chat gets involved. Like, no, no, do this. Or like, oh, wait, no, 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 no. It's like,
Exactly.
uh,
Exactly.
one, it's great because people are collaborating, but also it's just, I think that's one of the things I like about Twitch or platforms where there's interactivity. You know what I mean? It's not just like you there
You
talking to the
staring at a
screen.
screen like, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's yeah, there's so many things. I caught one of Leon's Twitch streams the other day because I was just curious. I just wanted to go on and see, and I think there's like thousands of people on the stream. It was wild,
Yeah,
and
he
like
has
yeah,
like
he was just going
3K,
berserk.
4K viewers at some points.
Yeah, but but I definitely agree though. Showing the struggle is super important, because like even a senior dev, you know what I mean? You could be staring at something for 2 hours and then like all of a sudden you have that aha moment, like you're like,
Oh
oh,
yeah.
that's what, and like,
All the
uh,
time.
yeah, and that's also a good reminder to take breaks if something's not working, go out for a walk or whatever, change the scenery. That's just a side note, but
I'm
yeah,
a
for
big
sure.
shower thinker. I'm a big shower thinker.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
that's why I get a lot of my hard I'm like a sad, lonely person just sitting in the shower, just thinking about my problems and hoping I can get through them. That works for me. I don't know,
awesome.
you know?
Yeah, yeah, no, no, I definitely think in the shower too, or just like, and I forget who posted this the other day. I put it on my newsletter, I think for this week or last week, but thinking is work, I like, you know what I mean? Like,
Seriously.
because like people, I think the pandemic has exacerbated this because a lot of people are remote
Oh
now. It's
yeah.
like, okay, I got to be coding, I got to, but like,
Like everyone, right? Like everyone's
yeah,
remote all the time, always on. It's a weird time.
yeah. But just stepping away, like I take naps at lunchtime sometimes or whatever, or I'll just like sit
Heck
on the sofa
yeah.
and but I'll still be thinking about stuff, and
Big
it
nap
is work.
vibes.
Yeah, but like I'll be like, okay, this thing I'm working on, and I'm not doing it on purpose. I just happen to start thinking it because obviously it's on my mind, so
Sure.
it's like it's not all about just pressing the keys all day, like, and that might sound obvious, but I can't remember who tweeted that out, but
It's
it
not obvious because like I can tell you right now, I'm mentoring two of my buddies right now who are trying to become developers, and so
yeah,
often we'll be like sitting in Discord and we game together, and then like we'll all work on some code stuff, and uh they'll be sitting there for like 3 hours trying to get like something done, and I won't give them the answer. I'm such a stickler and being like,
yeah,
think about this, like you have to start hitting these walls to know how to get over them, and I'm like, get the heck away from the computer for like 10 minutes. Walk away.
yeah,
Stop doing this. You're gonna come back and it's gonna feel like you know what you're doing because you have the context already. Like, give it a
yeah,
second and walk away. But you get so enthralled in like the answer that you're just like, you're like, I'm not
yeah.
leaving until this is done. That hurts you more often than it helps you.
Yeah, for sure. I found the blog post. I'm gonna be sending out my newsletter this week, but it's from Daniel Eden, who I believe they're a designer at Meta, but it doesn't matter that he's a designer. It's more just like the meat of it is
The
really
way
like,
people think, right?
yeah, so yeah, glad to say it's not potentially obvious. So just wanted to put it out there explicitly. Um, but yeah, and yeah, definitely, like you said, you got to step away sometimes, and we've all done it. You like, I've even done it when I know I need to step away. I'm just
Yeah,
like,
that's the
yeah,
worst
I
one.
know, yeah, I'm like, I know I'm supposed to walk away right now, but for whatever reason, my brain's just like, nope. You know,
Yep.
I'm generally pretty good at it nowadays. When I was younger, or like when I was starting off, I think there's a lot of pressure and it
Of
might even be
course.
just self-imposed pressure as like a junior, starting off.
Right.
It's like, I don't know. For me, it was a long time ago, and like the tech space was different, so like there wasn't any like mentorship or anything like that. So like I
Right.
almost kind of felt isolated at some point. So like that's why I would just like,
Yeah.
just really like stick to my guns and do it. And you
Yeah,
know,
I mean, at some point, it was just books and, like, hoping that you could find the answer through, like, people that you might know that may have hit this answer. Now
yeah,
it's like everyone's online and it's, like, cool to help people, so people are, like, always trying to kind of be there for
yeah,
support, and that definitely brings up some grifters, but it also comes with a lot of
yeah,
folks who are really trying to help, but the free resources that we have today,
yeah.
we are definitely spoiled by, no doubt.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. And yeah, your point about the grifters there, like, I I'm pretty active on Twitter. I know you are too, and like many people. Uh, I tweeted this out the other day, but I was just like, Twitter is a dumpster fire sometimes, maybe a lot, but there's still like a lot of good stuff in there,
Right.
And I've met people, like there's a ton of people who I've never met still because like the pandemic. But I've still been able to meet people, or talk to people, and like
Or even getting to know
I think,
people, like, from around the world, like, it's crazy.
yeah, exactly. And like, but even stuff like you're saying, like asking for help, like this kind of, like I remember I was working because we use Preact at work, so not React. So like, and I was working on this problem to fix something, and the components weren't unmounting because it's just the way we're set up. And so I had a PR up with like some ideas, and then I just put it on Twitter, and I didn't actually tweet to Jason Miller, who's the person that created Preact, but he actually respond, like we follow each other on Twitter now, but um he I think he just messaged me, or he replied to the tweet and said, "Hey, left a comment." And he the creator of the library that I'm using is responding to my PR in my PR. I was like, just kind
Right.
of like, you know, so it's and it's
No,
kind of ties into like,
you're so much more tightly coupled now because, like we were
yeah,
saying earlier, right? Like every tool has its own Discord now. Like
yeah,
everything that you're using, there's most likely a community around it, whether it's in GitHub discussions, whether it's in Discord or what have you. It could be any platform. But like
yeah,
finding those answers is much more streamlined than it's ever been, but that doesn't mean that your answers are always out there. So like it is
yeah,
something to like sometimes have to tackle it yourself, and back to our point is like walking away is like usually one of the best things you can do for yourself in those scenarios.
yeah, for sure. But it's the other thing too, just about like community in general, like especially for newer people. Like you said, like there's a lot of people like in my favorite community is Virtual Coffee. It's a community where I've met some really good friends now. Uh, but there's a lot of people that are either boot camp grads or still in boot camps, or self-taught, and I just always tell them, uh, you have, you know, don't be afraid to ask the questions. And this kind of ties into what Chris Biscardi tweeted the other day about like creating a safe space, but like just ask, because like there's so many people that want to help you, I
Yep,
just because they want to see you succeed and stuff. But I can see it being intimidating still for people starting out, like so.
for sure.
But I
Especially
tell
just
people,
making
just,
space for themselves. Like that's like hard.
yeah, yeah, and like even putting it out on Twitter, and it doesn't matter if you have like, whatever amount of followers, just tweet it
Right.
out. And this ties into what you were saying coming out of the boot camp, where like all of a sudden you had this work that you could actually show people. So like, even if you think like, hey, I'm nobody and I'm tweeting, like there's a lot of people do like 100 days of code and stuff, and like whenever I see them from people I know, I try to just like it or respond, say, hey, keep it up or whatever. I'm not saying burn yourself out with the 100 days of code. I know some
Right.
people don't literally do 100 days of code, but
Right.
just like putting yourself out there, and I know that's hard for people, and it's weird too, nowadays. I'm kind of going on a tangent here, but it's like when I was a junior, it was tough finding my first job, but once I did, I was in kind of, and
Right.
nowadays, like, I feel it's super tough for people. You've got to be active. Well, you don't have to be, but like a lot of people do these things, so you kind of have to. Like you're active on Twitter. You got all these projects, side things. You're doing your boot camp. Like it's like overwhelming, and it's like it's so much pressure on somebody who's just trying to land their first job. It's
Yeah.
like I don't
No,
know.
it's a lot,
It's
especially because interviewing in these days still sucks. So, yeah, I
yeah,
think one of the
yeah. That's a
one of
whole
the
other
points that
topic.
I want to it's a whole nother can of worms, right? One of the things that I really
Yeah,
want to touch on with that is that like I want to make it very apparent to folks that like your follower count does not mean you're going to get a job. And I think that's where we get the grifters and we get all of this
yeah,
like really crappy community content and stuff is that like I have been in dev for about 5 years now. I only have like 3,300 followers. And I say only because like, a lot of the people in my space, in the DX space, 10, 20, 100,000 followers. That's like
yeah,
where
yeah,
they are. And a lot of that comes from consistency of content over years. Like that's like, it's not just because they're
yeah,
like tweeting some witty banter on Twitter and suddenly they got hundreds of thousands of followers. Like a lot of it is like
yeah,
consistency
yeah,
over years of like not having any followers. I made it a point to not give a single crap about my follower count and to make sure that when I was making connections on Twitter, I was doing it with intention of like actually knowing this person or getting
yeah,
getting to know them over time. Like I would say that a lot of the people that follow me, I've interacted with at some point, and especially that I follow back, and like it's
yeah,
it's kept my Twitter away from a lot of the dumpster fires because like what happens is like especially it's like scary to have a huge following because then like you're everything you say is just on amplification of a million where it's like if I tweet out like a question about programming I'm gonna get mobbed by a bunch of like
yeah,
know-it-alls that are like why would you even do it this way like you're doing it wrong and I'm like
yeah.
okay I guess like
Was that
when you're
angry British Demetrius? Was that what
I
that
think so,
was?
yeah, I think that's what I've come up with, yeah. And I just don't see that as useful to do follow farming, right? Like that is not the type
Yeah,
of networking that and that's what a lot of folks who are new think is that the more followers I have, the more like and that's like it's fair and that's why follows are endorsements. Like these are real things like because who you
yeah, yeah,
follow and who you retweet and who you like those are things that other people see because especially the way the algorithms work. So like be
yeah,
intentional when you're doing this social network stuff like anybody who's watching this and like really don't just do it for the numbers, find the relationships in between, find places that but I like to say and we actually the Twitter space that I had recently we talked about this a bit um
yeah,
your your network really is a community like that like everything always comes back to community for me and like the people that you surround yourself even on a platform like Twitter like that's your
yeah,
Twitter community like that's it is a real thing because that's who you're interacting with, that's who you're uplifting posts and like that like being intentional about that stuff is so important and doing that
yeah,
early. Like I can tell you right now Twitter is the reason I have most of the jobs I've had. Twitter is the reason that I've met the really awesome folks that I have, why I moved from UI to DevX, like that, like it definitely
okay,
has done all of these things for me. But it's because I did it in a very specific way, I think.
yeah. No, I definitely agree there, and yeah, and the thing to remember too is like even it's still social media as well, so it's not, I don't, I try to be as authentic as I am, like, like
Of course.
uh, I try not to be something I'm not, but also,
They'll
it's not
find out.
like I'm
They'll
not.
know. That's the
Yeah,
thing, right?
yeah,
Like
yeah, yeah.
the internet will find if you are an a-hole, they will find out. Like
Oh yeah,
that is a real thing.
that will be found. Yeah, that well, if you're an asshole, that'll show up for sure. But
Oh yeah.
no, you know what I mean. It's like it's I don't know. I think Instagram makes it more apparent though. But it's like, you know, I just woke up eating French toast, and it's like perfect bed, everything, Yeah,
Bowl
exactly.
over the side of like a California high estate of $1 million house, and I'm like,
Yeah, yeah.
that's not the reality. I'm like looking at my desk with 4 mugs on it, a cup,
Yeah,
some
yeah.
like mouses, all like that's the reality. Yeah, definitely people,
Yeah, yeah.
and that's what social media does to us, right? Like we feel like we have to put on a
Yeah.
show.
Yeah, so, there is that, it's like, yeah, I made breakfast too, except I was in my underwear and I was pouring the maple syrup out of a can. But
Exactly.
anyway, sorry if that was a bad visual for people. But yeah, no, it's I don't know, not. I guess my point is not everybody brings their whole self to social media, and I don't think that's a bad
Right.
thing. But whatever you do bring, I would like saying just be genuine. Like
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Yeah, I mean, people are gonna find out who you are. Like that is like the reality is that like
yeah,
you if you're putting on a persona, you're gonna slip at some point, and people are gonna realize who you are. I think Jason Langsdorff gave me some
yeah,
of the best. Me and Jason is now one of my bosses, but was a mentor to me throughout my entire career moving into DevX. Is the reason that I am where I am.
okay,
Like I give a lot to Jason for just bringing me under his wing. And very early on, I was telling him like, I wanna create more content. I want to be more active in the socials.
yeah,
Like I'm not really good at that. And he was like, listen, like the one bit of advice I can give you is, and that's what I said earlier. If you're an asshole, people will find out. Be as
yeah,
much
yeah,
of you as you possibly can, because eventually you're gonna meet these people. Eventually, like there's gonna be a scenario where people are gonna see what you're really like, and I think that is like if
yeah,
anybody in this chat knows me, I'm out at everything that I do, acting exactly the same. I'm loud. I'm
yeah,
usually cursing way more. I'm actually cursing way less because we're on on this stream. So I want you to know that that is an active thing I'm thinking about. But I'm just like at render, like they were playing music, I was
yeah,
dancing, I was getting it. Like I want to show that being as much of yourself as you can be on socials can also still get you the followers and then what you want from your career. Like you can be
yeah,
you to everyone, and if the people that like you and those are the people that you're going to want to like you, and it also tells you a lot about yourself. Like I've learned so much about myself being who I am on socials and watching other people, because I've learned like
yeah,
what's not okay and what I should be thinking more about and being like, oh shit, like I'm so sorry I said these things, like I'm an idiot.
yeah,
That is one of the coolest things about being authentic, is that like sometimes you're gonna screw up. Everyone screws up. Some screw up way
yeah,
worse than others, but you're gonna screw up. You're gonna say something out of turn. Like learn from it. Get your mistakes in order. Don't try and put on a facade of this commercial that you're not really being that person for. Like do as much as you
yeah,
can
yeah, for sure.
to be who you are and genuine, because at the end of the day, that's all you have left is who you really are, not this persona you've made of yourself online.
Yeah, for sure. It's making me think, 'cause we were talking briefly about interviews. I'm wondering if it like, okay, forget the technical interviews. All we're doing is, okay, we're going to a karaoke bar. Let's see what you got, and it's either
Oh
a thumbs up or a
man.
thumbs down.
I'm gonna be on that stage getting weird. Never doubt that. Never doubt that. Yeah.
Awesome.
No, it's for sure a thing, and like, and that's another thing too, is like who you are on the internet is gonna affect what your jobs look at. Like they're gonna
Yeah,
look at your Twitter. They're gonna look at your at who you
yeah,
are online, and I think a lot of people are realizing there are consequences for who you are online,
yeah, yeah, for sure.
for sure.
Awesome. Well, listen, man, I swear to God, I could probably talk to you like the rest of the day, like for reals.
Me too.
We're getting close on time here.
We got 6 minutes. Let's
But
squash it.
yeah, yeah. But I don't know if there's anything you want to wrap up with. Like we talked about a lot of stuff here. I'm gonna drop the Jamstack Discord again, and if people want to give you a follow on Twitter and Twitch, they can do that too.
Be
And
careful. Be warned now. You are entering the layer of Demetrius. You start following me.
yeah, yeah, he's a great follow. Um, but yeah, no, it's been great talking to you, man. I mean, we still haven't met in person, but
Oh, we will. Oh, we will. It'll
yeah, yeah,
happen.
oh, definitely. Well, it'd either be
Maybe.
you or Mike Hardington. I'm not sure who, but
Right, and you're basically getting the same. Yeah, exactly. You get the same beard and hair, so you're good to go. Like either way.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
A. Thanks so much for having me. Like it's so cool to be on here. Like I said, I've been a fan of Dev for like so long. I've been a member on there for so long. Like It's so cool to be here. I think what y'all do for especially the growing community of new folks, I think it's really awesome to give them a platform that is safe, that is heavily moderated, and that does give them a space to share in public. I think that's so awesome for what y'all do. And so A, thank you for having me. B, you asked what I wanted to end off with, and I think, I've hammered this home a million times. Like, be yourself on the internet.
Yeah,
Help us create better and engaging communities, safer communities for everyone. Get on it. Make sure you're doing your part. And also, like, I say this every time I get on a stream or something. Uh,
yeah,
I may be slow to answer sometimes because I get socially overwhelmed being who I am. The
yeah,
DMs on Twitter, finding me on Discord. You have a question, whether it's about my past, my history, being a boot camp graduate, finding jobs, what jobs have looked like moving from UI to whatever, like coding questions, whatever.
yeah.
Slide into the DMs, message me. I'm that is where my career was built, was being available to folks when I could be. And I want to
Cool, cool.
uplift you. I want to empower you. And I'm telling you, if you're somebody on here right now who's struggling to become a developer, who wants to become a developer or just getting started, like, it's hard and you're going to go through a lot of struggles. You're going to go through a lot of things. My biggest advice is to become part or create a community that's safe around you, to learn inside of and to build inside of, because that will get rid of Twitter, get rid of everything else. The thing that has made my career what it is community. I've always been known as
Hmm.
like the community person. Like, that's just where my brand was built. And it's because I just am so passionate about what I learn so much being a part of communities. I become a better developer. I become a better person. It just, like, when you really are intentional about the communities you're in, it does make a difference. So yeah, that's all
Awesome.
from me.
Cool, cool. Well, just want to say thanks again for joining me, and also just want to give a drop for next week. We're gonna have a fun stream. It's gonna be kind of a panel. It's a bunch of career changers,
Nice.
some who are currently looking for jobs, some who have started jobs. So kind of getting the perspectives of from all of those angles, but also just making the transition from another career. And there's the people we have on, they all have some interesting careers they're coming from. So I'm excited to
That's
chat
awesome.
about that. So definitely check that out next week, folks. Thanks again, Demetrius, and we'll see you next week, folks.